Hello and welcome to the podcast. It's the last Sunday in January, which means we are almost in February. Now, I'm sure you didn't need me to tell you that, but isn't it a bizarre thing to think that we're already into, or very shortly going to be into, the second month of 2021, and it still feels like 2020. There isn't a whole great amount of change. However, it seems as though there is a lot more hope. I think, but in the same point, it feels like there's a lot less hope in that it's kind of, this is the status quo, this is the norm, we're used to it now, which doesn't necessarily translate into we're enjoying it. But anyway, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me this evening. And what I want to talk about today is exploration and adventure, which is the whole point in Sunday evening, as well as unity and community and translating. When I say translate, when Sunday evening mentions translate, it doesn't necessarily mean between languages. But at the same time, it does. It's between different understandings, different cultures, yet including different languages, but translating so that instead of things being misconstrued and things being misunderstood and disagreements and whatever else that you can think of that would cause conflict or lack of community or relationship, translate Sunday evening philosophy is to bridge those gaps and open the door to many opportunities to come together and create relationship. So, exploration, where does that fit? Well, I believe as humans we are naturally curious, aren't we? We want to ask the questions. We want to find out more. That's what news articles. It's what good publishing. It's what good documentaries utilize and take for granted is our curiosity as humans. They give you a thing of so and so has found, and it's dot dot dot. Oh, you've got to go to page 6. Oh, and there you have the answer deep in an article, which means you've read an entire article to find out the answer, which usually is very, very not particularly accurate or even that interesting. It's what's known on YouTube as clickbait. I'm sure in other places as well, but clickbait have that little thumbnail image as something extravagant, explosions, car chases, you go into it and it's just someone driving down to Sainsbury's. Now, to be honest, some towns are like that. But anyway, exploration today. Now, I come onto this topic really because there is a offshoot, another avenue that Sunday evening and myself are taking, are creating, are paving the way for, and that is Sunday evening expedition. What does that mean? Well, quite frankly, people really, underestimate or really don't particularly put in a spotlight their day-to-day business. Because day-to-day business is actually day-to-day adventure. How many things do we get up to and you get home and you think, did that really happen? Crikey, that was interesting. I've just met a new person. I've just gone a new way home from work. What a curious thing that's just happened. Oh, I've just found this credit card on the floor. Someone's looking for it. Here you go. Here, the little bits, the little things in life that you don't predict. You wake up in the morning and you're not expecting those things to happen. You get to the end of the day and they're the little surprises, the little tantalising surprises that keep us so, just keeps that spontaneity and that lovely unpredictability that every day brings. I know some people love routine and love knowing exactly what they're going to be doing and love being somewhere at 12 p.m. on the dot, maybe not in Britain, more like 10 past 12 if it's... Anyway. But there is also that inevitable unpredictability. And what I'm trying to highlight really with Sunday evening expedition is that all of life is an adventure. All of life is an expedition. You're always going out, seeking new things, finding new things, even if you're not intending to. You can't help it. Oh, someone's got a wedding on the other side of the country. I've never been there before. But you end up travelling somewhere you've never been, meeting people you've never seen, and maybe perhaps even doing things and trying things that you've never done. And that's so exciting. And we have the Three Brothers road trip, which is a road trip with three brothers, or three good friends, three guys, three cars, and you end up driving to a destination, having lots and lots of fun. And we did that to the Isle of Wight, and that was fantastic. Now, this is slightly different. Sunday evening expedition will be exploring, as the name implies, somewhere, having a time, hearing stories, finding out new things on a day-to-day basis. My Instagram blog has now gone over to being Sunday evening expedition prioritised, or basically titled now, because I'm realising the more and more I blog, the more and more I post, and it's like, oh, I was here, I met this person, I did that. It's encapsulated into the same thing. So instead of making it separate, I thought I'd just take it on board and take it on for myself, because I love it. I love adventuring, I love exploring, I love driving, I love road trips, travelling, everything. Just driving to the local shops, all the things you see, and it's the time, it's the personal time when you're driving somewhere or travelling somewhere. The thoughts you have, you don't have those thoughts when you're having your Cheerios in the morning. They're thoughts that you have when you're going somewhere. Is it tinged with a little bit of anxiety? Is there a little bit of anticipation? Is there a little bit of tiredness in there? Bleary-eyedness early in the morning? All these little features, all these little details of travel that are so wonderful, so beautiful, and it's just really something you've got to put in a diary at the time to remember that. I know Steve Backshall, a great explorer and naturalist, as he is called and calls himself. I'm a big fan of him. He's a huge inspiration. He does expeditions. He did this fantastic expedition series a year or two ago. It must have been 2019. I would have thought, where his whole life he'd been working on it, many years, to do 10 firsts. 10 firsts. And in expedition terms, that for him meant climbing a mountain that's not been climbed before, kayaking rapids that have never been kayaked before, going into underwater caves, underworlds that have never been explored before. 10 things that human beings have not done or have not been for sometimes thousands upon thousands of years. And he was asked about documenting. You don't have to document your journeys and your travels. To me, it comes a bit hand in hand, because when you're exploring out of leisure, or even not out of leisure really, it's the little details you look back at and you think, okay, that's interesting, or oh yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot that I bumped into that person, or saw that thing that day, or even smelt that smell. Steve Backshall was a big advocate for describing things in his books, particularly with smell. Now, you might think that's a bit odd with smell, because it just sounds a bit unusual. But he really emphasises the fact that as humans, we've really lost touch, or really lost kind of giving credit to our sense of smell. It's one of the strongest senses we have, and so many situations, so many locations, safety, non-safety, hygiene, whatever, is related and based around sense of smell, that sensory ability that we have. But we very seldom think about it or acknowledge it, I suppose. And it's such a, when you smell that smell which you haven't smelt for 20 years, and you think, it is one of the only senses, isn't it, that takes you back to that moment mentally. It takes you back to that situation, whether it's an aftershave, or a smell of a flower, or like a smell of a drink you haven't had. And you can hear about something, or even a song. You can hear a song and be like, oh, I remember that back in 2015, this happened. Oh yeah. But a smell takes you back in a way that other things don't. It's really interesting. So anyway, he was asked about documenting travels and things like that, and the importance of it. And for him, it is particularly important. And this is what I'm just trying to agree with and share with you from what he said, Steve Backshall, is it's the little things that you don't remember. And sometimes those little things fill in the gaps. Those little things enhance and give colour to those memories. You're obviously going to remember I climbed a mountain in Wales. Fine, you're going to remember that naturally. But are you going to remember the little frogs on the way up? Are you going to remember falling over? Probably, actually, people tend to remember falling over. Every story is a falling over story. Or you're going to remember the lovely orange juice you had before you set off. The little details that just fill in. So I massively encourage documenting, and that really also links up with what I'm doing on Instagram. I'm calling it a blog because it's, for me, the main source of documenting and writing a diary. I like to write an accurate description underneath the images to just give a bit more story to it, to what I've done and what I did and what I'm doing. And it's nice that I can reach out to people that way. I kind of encourage people to get on Instagram now. Facebook's too messy, too difficult to find things. So Instagram, very much simple, easy, nice, clear, simple, easy. Running out of words here. But anyway, so yeah, that's what I'm going to be working on now and continuing to work on and share with you different things. And I'm sure there'll be ways in the future of getting involved and be able to share your own stories. And yeah, I just encourage that. Really, see your life as an adventure. Every day is a new adventure. Every day is a new expedition. Everyone you're seeing, never think that something's a waste of time, or if something fails, it doesn't matter because you've travelled there, and on that travel, you've had experiences you might not have had if you hadn't tried that avenue, even if it didn't end up where you thought it would. Do it. Absolutely exciting. Love it. Can't wait for this year. As lockdown and the pandemic eases, we're a horrendous situation in the UK and across the world still, generally, but in the UK, hitting that 100,000th death is just. I remember them saying during the press conferences it would be a miracle if we kept the deaths below 20,000. Well, 100,000, unprecedented, really sad, really sad. I'm sure the discussion around this will go on for years and years, and will be, of course, taught in history class in 50 years' time. But I just want to really give a message of encouragement and say to you, just keep going, stay strong. It's tough, it's horrible, I hate it, but just see it as an interlude, turning the page of a book, going from one chapter to the next. See it as a transition, see it as a time of refinement, see it as a time of strength and character building, as much as I hate that. I hate that word, character building. It's like a title for anything bad that happens. It's like trying to be optimistic about it overly. But no, just see it as a step, as a fence you've got to climb over. And we will get through this together. And I think that's the thing I want to stress. Together. We've got to do it together. On your own, everything's more difficult. Everything's more difficult. So do things together in fellowship, in friendship, and in love and kindness. So, in regards to community and doing things together, I'm also have launched already. You're welcome to join on Facebook. As much as I said how much I hate Facebook, but I understand a lot of people are on there, so I want to include people that are maybe on there, not on Instagram, and vice versa. And do get on there regardless if you want to. Is a Sunday evening community group. Now, of course, if you're listening to this, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Facebook anyway, and you're seeing Sunday evening updates, or you're just talking to me in person or whatever, you are absolutely, not likely, you are part of the Sunday evening community already, and that's fantastic. Now, the point of the group is just to link those that are interested up into a group, and I'd love that to be a place of, discussion. You're not going to be posting. it's easier to find, isn't it? The discussion's in one place. If there's an update, everyone that's part of the community and has joined that group will see it at the same time. I'm sure there'll be elements of it that, asking for advice, asking for feedback from yourselves, what you think about how the podcasts are going and things like that. Do join that, meet more people from around the country. At the moment, I'm focusing on the UK, just to keep it contained and relatable. I'm not excluding people from abroad, so if there's anyone that wants to join that, please do. If there's anyone you want to invite to this for the first time, or perhaps has overlooked it, the group or Sunday evening in general, do invite them. Absolutely, more the merrier. If you're recommending people, do bring them in. It'd be lovely to increase the ever-increasing community that is Sunday evening. And at the moment, of course, it's all online. It's virtual with Sunday Evening Podcast. So in regards to last week's question, which was, what is your favourite means of communication? We had a couple of responses once again. Now, first of all, from David. Now, his answer is short, sweet, and simple, face-to-face. That is my favourite way of communicating. Means of communication. Face-to-face. Yes, of course, that is a shared one with myself. Also, nothing beats it, does it really? I mean, you get the emotion through since the first humans on Earth. Everything's been face-to-face. It's only because of longer distance correspondence and relationships that we've had to resort to other methods. So yeah, absolutely agree with you, David. And Mandy also has just said that it much prefers communicating in person, but also likes communicating by letter, phone, and text. I don't know if that's in that order or not, but yes, obviously they're nice ways of communicating. Probably letter getting rarer and rarer, but I think there's something really special about receiving a letter in this day and age, or just generally. I love sending letters, love receiving letters. You're reading it, it's not going to vanish. You can't swipe off the screen and it's gone. You store it. You're almost like storing that memory, storing that relationship, and putting that somewhere safe. Hopefully not in the bin. But there's something lovely about letters. Something you can include in a letter. I think it's because usually, especially if they're penned by hand, it's kind of that person's physically put their energy into that, and that's really, really nice. Phone's probably the next best thing from in person. If you're hearing those tones, not visual, but you're hearing those tones, you're getting that emotion through. And then text, which if you heard my podcast last week, you'll know how much I am conflicted on the matter. I would say it's good, it's quick, it's instant. But what I've always found is how emotionless it is, and you can misconstrue things so easily. The most bubbly, bouncy person in the world that you know can suddenly sound like the most miserable, like cynical, dry person you've ever known, just because of the way of texting. I know it comes down to English and the English language. It's so interesting. I remember studying that, actually, English language, and comparing how people text on a phone compared to how they text elsewhere. And that's interesting, actually, because people text differently to how they speak, I find a lot of the time. And people text differently to how they would write an email a lot of the time. It's interesting how different means of communication means different ways of using a language, not just English, of course, but anywhere where you are. So thank you very much, David and Mandy, for sharing your thoughts on that. I very much agree with you that face-to-face is the best way, in my opinion. And by the sounds of it, you both share that opinion, which is nice. I think that really, again, is nice to know and nice to see other people sharing that value of seeing people physically. Now, finally, it's going to be slightly shorter this evening, but it's just what I'm about to explain. Really, is I'm in transitional period. As you know, I moved up to Cambridgeshire. I'm currently at Wildlife Park, and I'm in transitional period, currently in temporary accommodation, which is nice to have. But I'm currently waiting for the next step. And in regards to that, I'm going to be pausing the Sunday evening podcast probably for a little over a month. I'm hoping to be back in March. And the reason for all that is starting to get things ready, starting to wrap things up. Always got that anticipation of, want to move, going to be getting up, going to be moving on. And I just thought it'd be nice now to pause for a little while, and anyone that's catching up with this podcast or maybe a few back, it gives you a chance to maybe hear those over if you want to and listen to those. The podcasts generally have a few, real time topics that are related to maybe to that week or that month. So it doesn't matter too much already, but a lot of it is universal. So it's not as though you're kind of, you listen to podcast 2 tomorrow. You're not really. It's not out of date as such. So do encourage you to do that if you haven't done so. So there is that content there for you over the next month and a half if you've been listening into the podcast, which I've been really grateful to be knowing of people doing so and hearing that and interacting with our weekly questions, and of course coming onto the podcast and sharing thoughts and stories and just interesting topics. It's been fantastic, and that is really what I'm excited to be getting back doing in March, is getting more and more and more people on the podcast, hearing personal stories, hearing opinions on topics. And I'd really also like to start involving musicians as well, because I'd like to showcase people's music. Music is fantastic. I love music. And we're also starting a music division of Sunday evening. We trialled it with the concert we did back in 2019. But now looking at reinstating it, maybe slightly differently, but yeah, bringing music back into Sunday evening as a core value, because it's been incredible for me personally. Also, it's really been a great crutch, really, a real great thing to lean on during lockdowns and the pandemic. Sometimes when there's no one around or no one that can hear you or want to talk to you, or just out of availability, sometimes music is that listening ear. Sometimes you hear it back also, and it's two-way. You hear a song and you think, wow, that's exactly my situation. Sometimes knowing that someone else has sung about that once or written about that once is just reassuring to know that you're not alone in your situation. Even if it feels like it at the moment, you're not alone at all in having experienced that. So get through whatever you're getting through, however big or small, and know that everything's a lesson, everything's a learning curve, everything strengthens us, and everything is expedition. So, yeah, how exciting is that? It is absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much for listening to the podcast this evening. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast across this month of January. Glad that we got to do every weekend in January. Looking forward to coming back in March. New podcasts, new topics, new guests, and more fun and community. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back soon. We will, I'm not joking. I don't know why I laughed there. Like I was like, so long. No, definitely. We'll see you soon. Take care. And we'll see where we are in a month or two's time. See ya.